Hello there, and thank you for joining us on Shaping Tomorrow. I'm your host, Ben Flanagan from Wired magazine. In this podcast from TII, that's Abu Dhabi's Technology Innovation Institute, we chat with world-renowned scientists, technologists and researchers to understand what's happening in the ever-changing world of science and technology in order to see how it affects our everyday lives, both today and tomorrow. For today's episode, I'm joined by Dr Najwa Aaraj, who is Chief Researcher for the Cryptography Research Centre at TII, also the Acting Chief Researcher for the Autonomous Robotics Centre at TII as well, and all-round very busy person. So today, Dr Najwa will be answering everything we need to know about cryptography. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Dr Najwa, welcome to Shaping Tomorrow. You've spent 15 years in the cryptography field and studied a PhD in the subject at Princeton University in the US. On the whole, how worried are you about the security of our communications given your background in this field?
Thank you, Ben. So obviously the security or lack of security in data communication, or what we call the data in transit, is associated with the level of classification of data. Mm-hmm. So the more secret or the more confidential the data is, the threat associated with the lack of security in communicated data, the more repercussions we have, the more threats or the more exploits to the data that we will see. Today we have various levels of classification, starting from top secret to restricted and to public. However, overall you see lack of technology deployment for securing this data in transit, and you also see a lot of lack of awareness from the user side in exchanging this information. So there is obviously a movement by government to start using secure communication solutions. So whether this includes secure email solutions, secure web conferencing solutions, secure file transfers, secure messaging solutions. But overall, you still see lots of data that is highly classified, that is being exchanged without an authentication between the two parties to start with, without this data being sent over secure channels, over the transport layer security, without like any sort of encryption between the two parties that are involved in this communication of data. And what this leads, it could lead to man-in-the-middle attack. It could lead basically to various types of threats while the data is being communicated in between.
Interesting. I mean, you're talking about top secret sort of government information sharing here. I mean, is the evidence of that, does that come from news reports, or is it in the public domain, this security shortfall as you describe it? Or is this something, knowledge that you've derived from elsewhere?
No, so this comes from, let's say, public sources. This comes from, the day-to-day encounters that you see. This comes basically also from the on-the-field experience that we see with how data is being communicated, how data is being transferred, how emails are used, how, for example, today we have you see that cloud infrastructure are being used openly. It is a shared cloud infrastructure. It's not a private deployment of cloud infrastructure, and then data is still being stored in the clear, unencrypted on the cloud with cloud providers, right? And this means that the data is exposed to the cloud service providers, and also this means that the data can be accessed by the nefarious players as well.
Okay. Presumably, this is a problem that's only going to get worse. Would you characterize it like that? Obviously, we're entering the age of quantum computing. I think TII itself is building its own quantum computer over in Abu Dhabi. What threat does that pose to securing our information and encryption?
Sure. So before I get into the quantum computer and the threat that quantum computers will pose to encryption, I wanted to say you're right. So this problem will become worse. So you have more information that is being exchanged. You have we have proliferation of IoT deployment, of machine-to-machine communication, sensor-to-sensor communication, and the amount of information that's going to be exchanged or that will be availed of will be increasing exponentially. So besides what I mentioned before about the lack of secure communication or the secure solutions for data exchange, we have the threat that quantum computers pose to cryptography in general. So let me get a bit deeper on that. So today we have quantum algorithms like the Shor algorithm and the Grover algorithm.
What are they? For anyone who's not aware of that, what are
Sure.
they?
So the Shor algorithm, basically, it's a quantum algorithm that, and I have to put this disclaimer, once we have a powerful enough quantum computer, it will be able to solve the hard mathematical problems based on which public key cryptography is based today. And namely, this will be integer factorization upon which the RSA algorithm is based, and discrete logarithm upon which the elliptic curve cryptography is based. So once this quantum computer, the large-scale quantum computer is available and is able to run the Shor algorithm, the security of the asymmetric cryptography, or what we know today as the public key cryptography and the public key infrastructure, will be going to zero. So it will be completely weakened.
So that's the, just to make it real, that's the kind of encryption you would find in, for instance, a so-called secure messaging apps and other apps on your phone, for instance.
Yeah, so just to get a bit deeper in this. So in every cryptographic protocol, you have the asymmetric part and the symmetric part, right? So there is the initial part where you have an assignment of a public-private key for, let's say, a user of a specific secure communication solution. And then for you to be able to exchange a session key, which later will be used in order to use the symmetric crypto between A and B, you need to have what we call the key exchange, which is using RSA Diffie-Hellman or elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman. So all of this is based on public key cryptography, and this is basically the part that will be weakened once the Shor algorithm is being able to be run by a quantum computer.
Quantum computers. So
Exactly.
they could, I've read that the messages that we send today between each other are pretty secure. Obviously there's exceptions to that, but in the future they could be stored, and in the future they could be cracked and read by quantum computers. Is that something that you've looked at?
Yeah, so basically, as you said, Ben, so today we're not really worried about the active quantum attacks because we don't have a quantum computer that is basically being able to run an active quantum attack, right? So I would say digital signatures is something to worry about when you have the active quantum attack. However, what we worry about is the passive quantum attack, is that today most of the communication or communicated information or the stored information that we have is, especially when we talk about top secret data and secret data and government information, can be stored up to 50 or even more years, right? So once this quantum computer will be available in the coming decade or 2 decades or 3 decades, you can still use this quantum computer to launch what you call the passive quantum attack. And this passive quantum attack can go back to data that has been secured today and then basically break the confidentiality of the data that has been stored today in whatever years that this quantum computer is available.
So when you bump into the quantum computer people over at TII in Abu Dhabi, what are the conversations like? Are they tricky conversations, or are you working together to
not at all, actually. Today,
combat this threat, really?
No, not at all, because the quantum computer will be more useful than useful to progress lots of, let's say, problems that are related to humanities, to running like more powerful, let's say, algorithm that can help on many many problems that are related to society, many mathematical problems, many problems related to optimization, to machine learning, etc., right? And at the same time, today the community is focusing on developing the quantum technology, and I'm not a quantum physicist, so I don't want to claim that I know much there. But also you have another part of, let's say, the scientific community that is looking into quantum algorithms, and these are important to be able to leverage this quantum infrastructure, right? From a crypto perspective, and today there's a very big movement in the cryptographic community to start finding public key crypto or algorithms for public key encryption, for key exchange, or what we call in the post-quantum world as the public key encapsulation, and for digital signatures that are based on hard problems that cannot be broken, or in the complexity space cannot be broken by the quantum computer, right? And this is what we call the post-quantum crypto. And this is where today cryptographers are looking at alternative candidates that are based on lattice-based crypto, that are based on codes, that are based on multivariate polynomials, that are based on symmetric primitives, or what we call today the hash-based signatures, and also isogeny-based crypto. So today, the cryptographic community realizes that RSA and ECC cannot be used once this quantum computer is available, and we are being proactive to develop alternative algorithms that belong to a complexity class that cannot be broken by quantum computers.
So it's like a different method, basically, of securing that are more resilient to quantum
It's based
attacks?
on, I mean, to put it, I know maybe I'm going into a bit of detail, but to keep it simply, it's based on mathematical problems that will not be able to be broken by a quantum computer. So they're not based on integer factorization or discrete log anymore, but they're based on different mathematical problems that will not be broken by the computer.
Because quantum is very specific. Quantum computing, I should say, is very specific technology, isn't it? It's a very specific set of problems that quantum has an advantage in solving. But what you're talking about is developing kind of mathematical problems that it isn't very good at.
That specific quantum algorithm will not be able to break.
So this is what you're doing in Abu Dhabi? Is this
part of what we're doing. Part of the team today in Abu Dhabi is dedicated to the development of a post-quantum crypto library, and we have already released a software library and also let's say some accelerators that can help with optimizing the performance of this post-quantum crypto library. Obviously, launching the first library does not mean that we stand still and don't work on post-quantum anymore. So now we have quite a fairly large team that's working on the development of development of post-quantum crypto library. We also follow the effort that are done by the effort of the NIST competition. So we look also at the candidates that have been or that made it through round 3 of the NIST competition. We're looking forward to the candidates that will be standardized by NIST, hopefully by end of this year or over the course of next year, and we're following the progress.
So that would benchmark, I guess, the standards for, what post-quantum cryptography has to, how resilient it has to be, I guess.
No, this basically will identify a few candidates that could start to be used as the standard for post-quantum crypto, right? Okay. So if we say, okay, if the one of the standards is Macellus that's based on codes, basically this would be a standard algorithm that will be recommended to be used. Okay. Or other candidates as well. So we're looking forward to that, and obviously based on that we will also have to have our own standards, because we develop the crypto libraries to be deployed, right? Yeah. So our next step will be to start integrating this post-quantum crypto library in critical infrastructure here in the country, and also with few clients at a global scale.
Right. So that has it come to that stage, or
yes,
it has. Okay. So what kind of, you probably can't name names, but what kind of clients do you see using this? And presumably it's not the sort of thing I'm going to be putting on my iPhone, but are we talking government, defense?
So I would say, I mean, obviously, as you said, I cannot name names, but it's basically anybody that has a critical infrastructure, right? And today, lots of, let's say, crypto systems that are being deployed in critical infrastructure, they rely on public key cryptography, on TLS. Basically, you have authentication that uses certificate authorities that are still using RSA and ECC. So we will be working with them in order to start the migration of the current crypto systems to post-quantum crypto systems. We have a methodology to do that. Probably we will pass by a hybrid approach.
Okay, yeah.
And then after this hybrid classical post-quantum approach, we will move into a complete post-quantum implementation. The thing I would say also is that one of the things that we're working very hard towards, and we have put a framework together, we have done a few publications around that, is that this migration has to ensure that as we migrate, we keep in mind crypto agility, because you also need a modular approach to how you deploy the crypto primitives, to how do you deploy the crypto constructs, and also how do you deploy the crypto protocols on top of those primitives and constructs.
Okay. I guess, I mean, what puzzles me is, obviously we're in very early days of quantum computing. Is this all theoretical, or have you tried these out in a real world sort of scenario, or is it all kind of on paper at the moment?
No, the post-quantum crypto primitives that we have, they're not on paper. I mean, so just to clarify one thing, so those PQC primitives or algorithms, they run both on the classical computers and quantum computers, right? Okay. So in fact, we have already deployed some of those PQC algorithms that we have even in secure messaging solutions. We have deployed them in a VPN solution, so they have been deployed.
So they've been used.
They have been used in real-world scenarios. You have libraries that have been published. You have like some research efforts globally, without naming names, that already have a TLS that uses post-quantum primitives. You have hybrid implementations of TLS where they have a hybrid approach between classical and post-quantum key exchange. So they have been used, they have been deployed, there are libraries out there, and they are being used in real systems and real applications.
What about on the other side of this? Is the Cryptography Research Centre also looking at cryptanalysis, which is, I think, on the other side, not the protecting, but actually the attacking side, if you're going to put it like that.
Yeah.
Is that something that is part and parcel of what you do at the research centre?
Yeah, absolutely. Today we have a team that is dedicated. So maybe before I answer this question, so today the Crypto Research Centre at TII is quite well-rounded. So we're one of the few teams that is covering multiple topics in cryptography, and also that is covering the topics more from a fundamental research to an applied research, right? So the team that developed the Sovereign Crypto Library is one of them, the one that works on the development of, let's say, more classical crypto algorithms. The post-quantum crypto team is another one of them, and also another team is the cryptanalysis team. And we look at cryptanalysis from, let's say, 3 angles. One is the theoretical cryptanalysis, so basically looking at analyzing ciphers from a theoretical perspective without going into the technical details, but these are the teams that look into, for example, a block cipher and do differential attacks on it, algebraic attacks on it, linear attacks on it. And then they look into also cryptanalysis of post-quantum crypto algorithms, developing estimators from a theoretical perspective. We have a team that's looking into implementation-based attacks on crypto algorithms or ciphers, and this is the notion of side channel analysis and fault attacks, which I guess you've heard of before. And also the same team is looking at how can I leverage machine learning in order to be able to advance cryptanalytic attacks, both from a theoretical perspective and also from an implementation-based, or basically for differential side channel analysis, differential power attacks, in order to basically, let's say, have a more automated way to do cryptanalysis.
So that would be basically AI looking at vulnerabilities and ways to crack encryption. Is that what you
not quite? So not quite. So basically, you can formulate it in many ways, but one of the ways would be to have a neural network model that is trying to model a specific property of a cipher and study it. Or basically, it is a neural network model that you train with different power traces that you get from a device that is running a specific crypto algorithm, and to be able to output to you the leaked secret or the leaked data based on those differential power traces that you feed it with.
How important is this, in the future? I mean, in terms of, geopolitics and the national security. This sounds like it's key, really, to defence in the decades to come. I mean, is that something that you have in your mind when you're running in the centre?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So this cryptography, even though I was telling you before we started, it's probably for some people it's highly mathematical and super boring. I can confidently say that it's.
Is that how you characterize it? Or?
I don't characterize it this way. This is what I do on my daily basis. So I love it. I love the field, and I've said before. I mean, one of the things I want to do is to have a very strong, one of the top crypto centers based out of Abu Dhabi, and I'm confident we will achieve this, and we already achieved a lot in this center. But to go back, cryptography is really at the base is the backbone of digital security, right? It's very important to have sovereignty over the design, over the implementation, and the testing of cryptographic algorithms, especially when you want to deploy them in critical infrastructure, right? It's very important to have the highest level of security in your crypto deployment. It's very important that you have a secure design of the crypto algorithm, that you do all sorts of that you have run all sorts of analysis and theoretical cryptanalysis on, but at the same time, the implementation aspect is very important. And today, lots of attacks that are launched against cryptographic implementations, deployments are implementation based, right? So starting from things like maybe your implementation is not constant time, and then you can leak some information based on the time profile or the timing profile of a crypto execution, to side channel analysis, to more sophisticated attacks that are more invasive in nature, like fault attacks, differential fault attacks, etc. So having sovereignty over the code, over the design, the implementation is very important.
Sovereignty as in country sovereignty, you mean? So the UAE
yes.
as a whole?
Yes.
Okay,
so on your own crypto algorithms, but also sovereignty on the implementation of known crypto algorithm. This is a very important aspect. On the classical crypto, on the post-quantum crypto, and also another library that we developed today, which is highly important, is lightweight cryptography, right?
What's that? How would you define that?
So today you have, going back to what I was saying, there is a proliferation of energy-constrained devices, IoT devices, sensors, actuators, cyber-physical systems in general. And today, the nature of these devices cannot run the current crypto libraries because they are heavy, right? You cannot even do authentication using a certificate today. Once you do it, the power on the device is gone.
So this could be something like a remote sensor somewhere?
It could be a wearable, a remote sensor, like a PLC and more critical infrastructure. It could be like any energy-constrained devices. Okay. So what we develop is libraries that can be run on those devices that allow to have a mutual authentication between the devices or the device and the cloud. And we combine that with machine learning inference to be able to run cryptographic operations or other security operations on the device.
Okay, so it's not crunching heavy data. It could be very light.
So light, it is
light and but still secure.
It gives you enough bit level security to secure information in transit and at rest. Yes.
You sound very confident that we're going to live in a very secure age over the coming decades, which is good, which is very comforting. Dr. Najwa, you sound very confident about the ability for our encryption systems to secure our data for tomorrow, which is encouraging considering this is your day job. But what worries you? What keeps you up at night about the future of security of communications going forward? Any curveballs, any technologies that we may not have discussed already today that may threaten security in the future?
So yeah, you rightly said it. I mean, from my perspective, whether it's our team here or basically globally, the cryptographic community overall, the security community overall, they're working on the development of secure, classical, post-quantum, lightweight cryptographic solution. They're working on development of privacy-preserving protocols and schemes for the cloud. So the technology development is there, right? So some of the risks that we run is the slow adoption of the technology, the lack of awareness of the criticality of having cryptographic solutions or cryptographic assets or cybersecurity solutions in general in organizations. Regardless of the level of let's say classification or the level of data that is being communicated or exchanged or processed in a specific organization. And also I worry about, as we move towards post-quantum crypto or the adoption of new cryptographic technology, I worry about the lack of agility of today's system. So how are we going to do this migration? And also the whole need for backward compatibility and then for basically to have the right people that do this migration and that do the adoption of the technological solutions.
Interesting. So it's more the kind of human and institutional aspects of implementing
I would say
these secure systems and encryption
systems. I would say, I mean, today in the cyber world or in the crypto world, you have the three elements that are related to technology, to let's say manpower or human or awareness, and then you have the process, right, or the framework in order to adapt the technology and for the manpower to follow it. So from a technology perspective, I'm confident it's there, or at least like we're working towards it. We still have to work on the awareness, on the training, and to have the right manpower with the right capabilities and the right knowledge in place to deploy those technologies. And we still need to have the process, the standards, and the frameworks to be able to take the technologies with the manpower and then put it together.
And that would apply to, I suppose, governments, to big corporations,
yes,
not individuals, but
even individuals. Of how do you deal with your personal data, how do you protect your phone, etc. At the end of the day, and I like to repeat this all the time, is that to get into a system, you just need to exploit the weakest link, and that individual can be the weakest link, right? Obviously, if we are to prioritize, you start with the most critical infrastructure, with the most to the top secret classified data or the highest classified data, and then you move downwards. But overall, I would say it is all inclusive of everybody, because again, to exploit a system, you have to, or to exploit an environment, you have to exploit the weakest link.
You're making me want to change all my passwords.
I think you should.
I'm going to do that.
I think you should, yeah.
Dr. Najwa,
but don't change it too often, right? So that because you will be repeating passwords. So you need to have the right process, the right knowledge in order to change your passwords as well.
Well, there you go. I think we've covered a lot of ground there. We ended on quite a simple aspect of online security. But I think we've also heard, Dr. Najwa, really how this space is going over the coming decades in the quantum age. So that's some fascinating advice on both levels there. So look forward to hearing from you in the future about where this space is going. So Dr. Najwa, thank you so much, and thank you for joining us on Shaping Tomorrow. got any questions for anyone at the TII team that you'd like to get some answers to in future episodes, do get in touch via our social media channels. For now, see you next time.